Hello everybody, and welcome back. The two of us are unbelievably in the same space this time. How crazy is that, Ben? Normally there's a huge gap between our recordings. I can split the screen and make it
broken the fourth wall here.
Yeah.
Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too. My partner and I are in this lovely Airbnb at the moment while she recovers from her operation that I've hitherto referenced in the previous videos, and if you've been keeping up in the YouTube posts and whatnot over the last week or so. But we're here with a better late than never review, not for this week we're currently in right now, but the week which has literally been 5 days or so since it's finished.
Yeah,
such is life.
Yeah, and there's been quite a bit of action over the last week or so. We will have another review coming up for this weekend's fixtures, but even with the last Bundesliga round and the last round of the A League, there's still plenty to talk about.
Yeah, plenty to talk about. So we'll dive and go straight into it with the Bundesliga, and what a perfect place to start then. Well, we talked about last week saying how big a week it was for your boys, especially in the Bundesliga. As you predicted, you got the job done over Hoffenheim and advanced in
the
cup. We had a couple of days of some better feelings, and that came crashing back down to earth on the weekend. Though.
Penalty shootout and a last minute equaliser. When I say last minute, 120th minute to take it to penalties wasn't ideal, but
you scored.
Oh, we scored and won the penalty shootout, which is great, but. But
we're not here to talk about
that. But
we're here to talk about what happened a couple of days later.
Yeah, and that's just what was my next point was Halloween was coming up, and the following fixture was an absolute nightmare, and that's actually going to be the first game that we'll cover because that's probably where the big issues of the weekend were, and St. Pauli losing 4-0 at home to Borussia Mönchengladbach.
We were winless going into that game.
Indeed, yeah. Where do we start? There's massive issues at my beloved St. Pauli. It's fair to say now. We talked a few weeks ago about things needing to change if results stayed as they are, and we're really easy to score against and to lose 4-0, and just I guess the way the first couple were conceded, and that's what we'll go into in just a moment.
But, we'll get into that in a moment. But I was just going to say, my team, obviously, we beat Gladbach 3-0 the previous week as well. And I did mention in the last review, for those of you who listen and you remember, I thought they put in a very spirited performance, and even when they went down to 10 men early, we didn't score the first until after the hour mark, and it was only then when we started to break through them and got the other two. So I did highlight the fact that they looked like they were improving, and you guys look like you've been on a steady decline in the league at least. And, it was a big relegation 6-pointer, you could say, earlier in the season, and St. Pauli took about 9 or 12 points from it, if you could put it that way.
Yeah.
So not St. Pauli, Gladbach, what am I talking about? My bad.
If we could start getting those 6-point games in the bag, that'd be fantastic. But look, I actually stayed up and watched most of the game for a 1:30 a.m. Sunday morning kickoff. It wasn't an ideal result, nor was it the best start. Look, Jackson Irvine was on the bench again. He looks like he might be coming back to a starting role. But the guy that I want to start with, and not that I want to start with, but we have to start with, is Nikola Vasil in goal. Another calamitous error. We talked about the one that he made in one of the previous fixtures, which was just unforgivable.
I think the last two games, right, against Frankfurt, that was horrendous. He was poor against Hoffenheim. It's been a few weeks where your goalkeeper, who was one of the best keepers in the league potentially last season, has looked very bad for a few weeks now. And I think you told me midweek in the Hoffenheim game in the Pokal, Ben Vol had a good game.
He played really well, and I was a little bit surprised that he didn't actually get the call up for the weekend game. Really, you're playing in the top division, and just to set the scene, there's a horrifying moment only 10 minutes in. It was a low cross that actually just beat Haris Tabakovic of Gladbach and the home defenders. So Gladbach really should have scored within the first 10 minutes, but the error that I'm talking about was Nikola Vasil basically attempting a regulation pass through to Daniel Sinani. Missed him, went straight back to the opposition, and Neuhaus found Haris Tabakovic, who's a proven goal scorer, and basically it was an open net goal, and Vasil was in no man's land, and really to concede a goal like that at home in the first 20 minutes is just, there's no excuse for it.
Just to concede a goal like that, like he's had, as we said, he's had a few bad weeks, and he's not helped his confidence in front of goal.
No.
And then, as a team, when you're on the ropes in general in the league, your goalkeeper's always obviously the last line of defence, and if they're going to be dropping clangers week after week after week, it's never going to help. Like, this is like, the one last week against Frankfurt, fumbling the cross straight to Burkhardt at the back post, that's bad enough. That one against, Gladbach, this, like, on the weekend just gone, like, awful. You can't, as a goalkeeper, it's a schoolboy level of stuff.
100 times worse. But
it just shows a lack of confidence in the team. Like, no one's picking up the ball. Sinani's not come close enough. No defenders are aware.
Yeah.
Gladbach have players just all around ready to pounce. And like most of the game, that was the case. They were first to so many of the second balls.
Absolutely.
They were all over. Like, Sampaoli mostly just looked a bit down on confidence, and I think that result ain't written. The worst part about it is you think you win a big game in the cup. You think you carry that confidence over to the league. The start was bad. They missed a couple of early chances and then got gifted away into the game.
Yeah.
And that was it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we talked about the Halloween weekend, and could the nightmare get even worse after that? Absolutely. So another ball down the left found Honorat, who found Zabakovic with a low cross for 2-0. And by that stage, I
just thought the defending was poor on that second goal as well. Honorat was just in so much space.
Yeah.
Easy cross. Zabakovic, as any good striker should, just following in. And at 2-0, Conver's down.
Horrible
as a team
defending.
Already, you just can't score goals anyway.
Yeah, the writing was on the wall at that point, and I'd actually gone to bed by that point. Even I'd had enough. But basically, look, the second half was much of the same. Shuto Machino, who was the former Kiel striker from last season, he came off the bench for Gladbach and scored. Oscar Freire
Got hurt you a lot as well, because
I
know you were saying in the summer how badly you wanted Machino.
I do rate him, and I was hoping to pick him up for our group. But look, really looking to, I guess, the next fixture, which we'll cover during next week. Look, things have to change, and that's Freiburg away. But this game was just really another example of the troubles that we've had on multiple fronts, defensively, confidence-wise, just making stupid mistakes and errors. The quality players, like your first choice goalkeeper.
That's the thing that alarms me, because this defence of yours, it's the same defence pretty much from last season, apart from Karel Metz, but he was injured and he was always one of your better ones, I thought you said anyway, right?
Yeah.
So you've had it's practically the same defence. If not arguably stronger, with one of your better players even in there now, who was so strong anyway defensively last season.
Yeah.
And they're now making errors. That's the big issue.
Yeah.
Like, I'm starting to notice it just kind of looks like the player, like Blessina's just running out of ideas of how to fix this, because he's changing your team most weeks, if not every week.
Well, I mentioned to you,
Afolayan starts against Gladbach, doesn't start the week before. Hutonji starts the week before. I can't remember if he started against Gladbach or not.
And not only that, I mean, I mentioned to you pre-recording that Afolayan came off for Hutonji at half-time, or just after half-time. So I thought the selection itself was a little bit strange, given the fact the game was pretty much almost done at half-time. But from a Gladbach perspective, I mean, look, it's good for them. It's their first win in the Bundesliga for the first time since March.
Some style.
Absolutely, and look, they'll be hoping to keep those positive results going. And we talked about the sides around Sampaoli picking up points eventually, and that's already started. So
the other thing I think which is alarming, even if you look at teams like Heidenheim, who are at the bottom still, they still have goals in the team. They've got players in the team who are still capable of scoring goals, like Zivzivadze and players like that, who scored in their game, as we'll get onto in a moment. But like, that's the problem I was going to highlight. I mean, just these last few weeks, whenever I watch you guys, admittedly, I'm only watching 25-minute highlights to cover your games at the moment, because I won't be watching a full game of yours.
Maybe I should start doing the same, hey?
Yeah. But what I'm saying is just like, it just beggars belief as to how you're going to score goals, because even the chances you were creating in that game kind of just felt a bit more like a bit of a hit and hope.
You're exactly right. Pereira Lage had one, and Saliakis had one that sort of tested the keeper, and that was basically it. and just that defensive lack of confidence is really clearly showing at the moment. Are they missing Irvine through the midfield? Early days it just looked like no, but absolutely it does now. And
to summarise before we drag on too much about it, because there's still 14 more games across both comps to cover. I'm just going to say, I think it's starting to look like, I'm not saying maybe the writing's on the wall yet for your manager, but I don't know how much longer you should be persisting with Blessing, because that's now 6, I believe, in a row in the league. Yep. Every week goes by, you're sliding closer and closer towards the bottom 3/bottom 2. Yeah. I know at this stage it's too early to start calling things a relegation battle, obviously, but
it's going to get to that point eventually. And
if you haven't reached double figures in points by the winter break, then I think you're in trouble.
Yeah, and just to put a final full stop on this game before we move on, we did talk about the Pokal win against Hoffenheim, who St. Pauli had been beaten by a couple of weeks earlier. Who's St. Pauli's next opponent in the cup? Gladbach. So Stockholm syndrome right there. So, but anyway,
which means you're going to beat them.
Yeah, exactly.
So if you keep playing teams that are beating you easily in the league, you're going to win the Pokal, right?
Exactly.
You might get to the final and play us. We might do you 6 or 7-0 in the league, and then you might beat us in the final.
We might do an Bielefeld. There you go. But look, we'll put a full stop on that one, and we'll move on to the next game. Yeah. It was actually the Friday night game. Which was Augsburg home to Dortmund.
I mean, speaking of teams who are looking a bit ropey at the moment, I'm feeling sorry for Sandro Wagner because Augsburg are not in a good run of form right now. They got pumped off Leipzig last week. Admittedly, it's a much closer game against Dortmund, but this is what Dortmund are doing right now, and they're good at it. Just getting one goal and just seeing the game out, basically, with little to no trouble, as was the case in this game, really.
Yeah. Well, I had a look at this game, and I actually thought Augsburg were considerably better than their previous outings.
It still, to me, didn't look like they were ever in danger of threatening a Dortmund win, though.
But they made Dortmund work for their 1-0 win, though, for sure. Guirassy was lively again. So 37 minutes in, so close to half time. Really poor defensive turnover on the edge of the box. It really proves that it only takes one defensive lapse for Dortmund and other sides, for that matter, to make you pay in this competition. Elvis Rexbachai actually had the best chance for Augsburg. It was a close range strike. Joe Bellingham actually.
Funny. I was just going to say, in the notes, people, he did originally write Jude, and I saw that. I'm like, you're a couple of seasons too late, man, and promptly changed it to Job, the other one, his brother.
Yeah, so Joe Bellingham actually threw his leg out and actually stopped what looked like a decent shot on target, but. Like, really, it's 6 defeats in the last 9 for Augsburg now, and yes, they did make Dortmund, work really hard for that result as teams on their home patch should. But like you said, it was never really a case of Augsburg troubling them offensively too much. But other clubs around them are starting to pick up points, and eventually.
It's similar to your boys. Yeah, it just seems to me at the moment Augsburg are heading into a bit of a tailspin, and it seems like. That confidence to try and see games out or try and get things from the game. I still think there's at least more goals in the team than St. Pauli, obviously. But it's just they're kind of in this kind of bad run of form where it looks like they're struggling to find ways to win games, get points, stuff like that. So they, along with St. Pauli, another team who are week by week are starting to slide into that relegation zone.
Absolutely.
As those other teams start to pick up points.
Most definitely.
Yeah. But we'll move on because, there wasn't much more to say about that game, really. Dortmund just do what they've been doing recently in most games, and that's just getting real, 1-0 wins, and without looking too defensively unstable, really. It's, a good sign if they're going to try, if they can add a couple more goals, obviously, going forward. Guirassy, it's a couple of seasons now he's been doing this, but he is one of the best strikers in this league, surely.
Absolutely.
He was brilliant for Stuttgart a couple of seasons ago. He had a decent enough season last season for Dortmund, and he's just kicking on again this season for Dortmund. So he really is, and they will miss him in January or December or whenever the AFCON is. They will miss him when he goes off to the AFCON.
Absolutely.
So, we'll move on, though, to my team, who... just can't seem to stop winning. We're heading into mid-November now, and we've won every single game of football that we've played in every competition, which is just mental. Since we recorded this, of course, we've gone and beaten PSG away from home in the Champions League as well, just to add to that. But we're going to talk about the Bundesliga, of course. Now, I thought, last couple of seasons, other than us, Leverkusen have been the team who, one of the probably second best teams in the league. right? And they've been on a good run of form since bringing Kasper Hjulmand in as their manager. And we made 7 changes from the midweek Pokal win against Köln, which broke that record, obviously, for the most wins from the start of the season that AC Milan had held from back in 1992. And, I was still confident that we were going to potentially win, but I thought it'd be like a 2-1 sort of deal, maybe a 1-0 maybe.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, but I was blown away by that first half, really. 7 changes to the team, and it didn't look like Kane, Elise, Luis Diaz, all 3 didn't start. They came on in the second half, but were they needed? The game was already done and dusted at that point. That was a truly remarkable first half of football from Bayern against a team that, everyone at the beginning of the season would have said would have been the team to most likely challenge us for the title.
Yeah.
And we brushed them aside 3-0 without 3 of our main attacking players. I mean, that kind of tells you a story of how this season is going right now and how Bayern are going right now.
Yeah.
It's not really the whole story for Leverkusen, of course. It's not terrible. It's their first defeat under Hjulmand, I believe.
Yeah.
They had a good run before that, and I'm sure they'll just pick right back up into winning form in the following week. But I think I don't want to go on about Bayern endlessly for 10 minutes every week. It's just another one of those games where I just sit back and go like, wow. I mean, what is happening this season for I know we're good, and I've seen this for multiple, the 6 trophies in a year with Hansi Flick, obviously, the Pep Guardiola, Lewandowski early stages of that, good teams before, but I mean, right now, at this point in time of the season, this team is just moving crazy, is what I'm going to say.
Yeah,
I mean, what are your thoughts on, what in the end was a very routine win almost for Bayern?
It was routine, but the one thing I'm sort of looking at, and you're talking about sort of, having personnel out. Alphonso Davies is still out injured, right? So,
and Musiala.
And exactly. So once those guys get back, you're going to be hopefully even.
No, but the funny thing is, we're not even, especially Musiala, it just doesn't even feel like we're missing him, which is what's crazy. With 15 wins from 15 without him, it's just crazy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's again just Bayern doing what Bayern do, and can they carry that into the next couple of fixtures in terms of more wins? We'll have to wait and see.
I thought it was good that Nicholas Jackson got a Bundesliga goal. He's been, hasn't been amazing since we got him on loan this season from Chelsea, but I mean, he's been good enough as a serviceable backup for Kane. Came in, started the game, got a goal, had a decent all-round performance. I'm going to highlight Konrad Laimer, though, a player that really does go under the radar, who's had a couple of seasons now with Bayern, been all right, but I think this season he really has started to really become this sort of unsung hero in this team, in this system, and this team of ours that Kompany has. He's a utility player, but we use him a lot of right back. And he just, the engine on that guy, just get up and down. The positioning he picks up, the way he gets into positions. Rafael Guerrero is another one. Of course, he scored the previous week against Mönchengladbach. We've just got a lot of good players who just seem to know their roles and almost cover different areas. Guerrero, Kimmich, and Laimer. 3 players who can all play at right back and could easily play in the centre of the park as well. It's a good selection problem to have, isn't it? Lennart Karl as well, he didn't score in this game, of course, but another player, this young player, who's just lighting up the Bundesliga. He just looks like he knows what he's doing every time he's on the pitch. There's
some fantastic young guys coming through the competition, but like you said, having players like that who can play multiple positions have that flexibility sort of sets you guys and other clubs apart from the others that have got the ability to do that. But I'm just
going to sum up because I just thought we were good. Obviously, I thought Leverkusen were uncharacteristically poor for how well they've looked in recent weeks prior to this game. I think Ernest Poku was by far their best player. It wasn't amazing. He had a couple of dangerous moments. Showed that pace he has at times. I just think it wasn't a great performance from Leverkusen, who looked like they would have been putting more on the pitch really heading into this. Not to say they're not going to in weeks to come. I still think they're going to be right up there for the top 2, even second place, because they are playing good stuff most of the time under Hjulmand. It's just for whatever reason Bayern were just way too good for them on the night.
Absolutely. So the next game we're going to have a look at was actually for a scoreless draw. It was actually quite entertaining. So Union at home, who always tend to play well at home. Scoreless draw, as I said, against Freiburg. So Matthias Ginter actually almost scored on 17 minutes, but the header was actually chalked off on VAR for a handball, which was a pretty obvious handball from what I saw. But the home side actually had their own goal denied from Illich. So Khedira was actually in a wrestle with the defender, and the goal was actually chalked off. It was a great finish, but chalked off in the end, which was probably fair enough. But he was actually more interested in wrestling his defender than he was to actually try and score, it looked like. But, I mean, really, from my point of view, look, a scoreless draw and a point each, it doesn't really do much for either side. 10th and 11th at that point, respectively, a real opportunity missed for both sides to claim all three. What did you make of this one?
I think what I made from this is what you expect from Union at home. They're just solid, like rigid, physical, very well organised.
Tough
team.
To break down.
Stefan Baumgart is a very good defensive coach. I was, talking about your guys again, just to bring, the defence that Blessing was bringing last season, but you don't have the attack. Union aren't back. They can score goals and they can, they get physical. They're good from set pieces. I don't think it's ever going to happen that he's going to drop from Union to St. Pauli in a relegation battle potentially, but that's the type of, if you're looking to continue with the same system but be better, that's the type of coach you should be looking at. Yeah. That's unrelated to the game, but just thought I'd put that out there. No, I just thought, again, in a goalless draw is always, always going to be not that much to talk about in terms of talking points. 2 goals getting called off, 1 apiece for each side. Union at home are just very strong, well organised side, as I said, and
absolutely.
I think they'll be happy with the point. Maybe Freiburg will be happy with the point because they're not the easiest team to get points at home. They can be difficult to break down. I mean, Nove didn't break them down, but they weren't broken down themselves. So I think Freiburg probably happier with the point.
Yep.
But I think Union will probably be just as happy because it's like, look, it's another home game. It's another home game undefeated.
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously to put a full stop on that one, Freiburg do have a really good opportunity back at home. With the weekend coming up against St. Pauli, who are struggling. So, from their point of view, they'd be looking to really to cash in on that. But look, that particular game, entertaining, but a scoreless draw for different reasons. But and the next game was actually also a draw as well, but a little bit more entertaining. So. Mainz, as we've talked about, as the last few weeks, have sort of had a bit of a slow start.
This European football was killing them in the league.
Yeah, and Heidenheim, we've talked about already, being in the same boat. But Mainz had a 1-1 draw with Bremen. So Mainz have they came into the contest with 4 points and really needed to get their campaign going at home. Sylvain Widmer actually gave Mainz a deserving lead after 36 minutes. A really good second chance from some great defending, really ensured that they carried that lead well into the second half. They actually played really well during the first. Bremen were really plucky, didn't give up. Jan Starger actually levelled in the 86th minute. Really good right-footed cross from a really poor headed clearance from Mainz, who really got what they deserved. I mean, if you're not clearing crosses late in games like that, you probably deserve to be punished, really. And Robin Zettner just got nowhere near the volley. So from my point of view, you look on as even, but Mainz actually looked the better side for the most part.
Yeah, I think that's a fair reflection of it. As I said before, they are really getting killed by this European football at the moment. It's a side that have a way better team than their league position in the bottom 3 currently suggests by far. Like, you look at some of the players in the team. Vidma's one you highlighted, scored in this game. Amiri's another one, a very good attacking player, like in terms of his position up there in the league, in terms of like the output he puts out. They've got players that should be higher up the table. The team should be way higher up the table than they currently are. It's just this European football, which I believe the first time maybe ever, or if not in a long time, that they've been out to Europe for midweek games. And it's, you brought up Heidenheim last season were doing the same thing. And
it catches up with you,
They had to they survived for a playoff in the end, obviously. So it didn't help them a bit, and it's not helping Mainz. I think, the one difference is Mainz do have a better team than Heidenheim, so I think they won't. I think as the season goes on, they'll start to lift themselves up and out of that relegation danger. Doesn't mean I'm going to say they're going to go straight up and go back into European spots again as well, but I think when the winter break comes, players get refreshed, depending on what happens as their European campaign goes on and how early they get knocked out or how late they got knocked out. Will also be a massive impact on how they go for the rest of the season.
Absolutely.
You're talking about keepers. There's someone I want to highlight. I know you can see it in this game, but I think Mio Backhaus right now for Bremen is this young keeper is a serious prospect. He made, like, in the lead, I felt unlucky. You kind of feel sorry for him that lead up to the goal that they scored, Mainz. A fantastic save, but then obviously the ball got recycled and Widmer got it on the second attempt. But he's an incredible goalkeeper.
Yeah.
He's this young keeper, this young German keeper, Mio Backhaus. The prospect of him as a keeper looks very good.
Yeah.
And again, that triangle of, Marco Friedel and Amos Pieper in front of him, once again, barely being broken down, only conceded the one goal again. Bremen have, building a very strong defensive unit, as I keep highlighting every week, and they keep proving every week, which is good as well.
Absolutely.
And going forward, it's the problem. When your midfielder, Jens Stay, is the one who's looking like he's more likely to get a goal than most of your other outfield attacking players, you got a little bit of a problem there. It's still a point I reckon they'll be happy with, maybe. Potentially. I'm not a Bremen fan, obviously, but
I mean that mid-table section does look quite even. So sort of almost like any team can.
I think Mainz will be
day.
Disappointed. They were close to the win.
Oh, for sure.
Then conceding up. To be fair, take nothing away. It was a fantastic finish from Jens Stay, and he had a chance to win it as well later, like even later than that. But yeah, I think overall, based on this game, Mainz should have probably got the win. Yeah. And I think they will start winning games, but I think right now it's just squad depth is an issue for them. And these European games aren't helping, but overall, and I say it every week and I'm stand by it, I still think they're going to finish well clear of that relegation.
I would agree with on what I've seen. I'd agree with that. We talked about Heidenheim just a second ago, and that was the next game that we're going to have a look at. So a 1-1 draw against Eintracht Frankfurt.
Who I believe are completely collapsing now at this point. Going into the season and the way they started the season, I'm just going to say Frankfurt looked like they were nailed on for the top four, even second place. They have completely fallen off a cliff over the last month and a half. Yeah. And this is another result to prove that. I know, Heidenheim, small ground away. I mean, I've said it before, I'd love to watch a game of football there. It looks like a great game. Great ground to watch a game of football at Heidenheim, but it's another awful result for Frankfurt. Yeah. Bottom of the table, Heidenheim.
With nothing to lose, right?
Yeah. And I just think Frankfurt are once again disappointing in like the talent that they have, especially the attacking talent they have in their team this season.
Well, the thing that caught my eye from the start was Jonathan Burkhardt actually started on the bench. So whether that was a move that sort of backfired on Frankfurt from the beginning, we don't know, but...
I mean, they had Champions League midweek, obviously.
Well, that could be a reason behind it. But one of the guys that we actually talked about just before, from a striker's point of view, and I'm going to try and get this pronunciation right, was Zivzivadze for Heidenheim. Zivzivadze for Heidenheim, yeah. By the end of the season, it'll be a perfect pronunciation.
So it's Zivzivadze.
Yeah. Yeah, hit that guy. Look, I thought he was great for Heidenheim, and as I said, coming in, they had nothing to lose, and playing at home in the position that they're in now, they want to try and get as many points at home as they can.
But this is the thing I want to point out, right? They've, since we started this podcast, they got the 2-2 in the first week we did this with Bremen. They've got another 1-1 against Frankfurt here. I know they've lost in between that. But I think overall, when we're talking about teams, again, to bring you guys into this, who are going to be down there in that relegation battle right now, it seems. They're bottom of the table right now, and they haven't won many games this season, Heidenheim. But even compare that to Pauli, I still look at Heidenheim and go, well, they're still capable of scoring goals in games. Like, I know I'm not going to just keep bringing this back to Pauli, but that's another thing I want to point out.
Please do, I'm enjoying it.
One thing I want to point out is, even though they're not the best team, they're currently the worst team in the league, they still have players in their team who can score goals when they need it. Yeah. Well, Schimmer's looked good in recent weeks. He didn't score today. Yeah. Zivzivadze's looked good in recent weeks. Has scored today. Yeah. you know, they've got players in the team. I like Ibrahimovic, of course, like a good midfield option who can pop up. Pierinho, who scored at the end, obviously, but it was ruled off. You know, another player who can get goals but at times. So they have options there. It's just overall they're just not doing enough. They don't have enough in games to get them over the line most weeks. Well, but again, as I've said, it's a poor result for Frankfurt, ultimately.
It is. And we talked about the Živžavadze goal. It was actually Honsak and Ibrahimovic that actually set that up. It was actually a really great run on the wing.
Honsak's another one.
That I did actually have to replay a few times just to sort of take the whole sort of play. And it was a really good move from the back and really well finished. But yeah, you talked about the Pierinho goal late that was ruled offside, which was sort of unlucky for them. But
spared the blushes of what's his name, the Frankfurt keeper. I forgot his name. Mine's drawn a blank. Remind me in the comments, guys. It's not Kevin Trapp. I know that it used to be.
But look, I think Heidenheim would be happy with that point. I mean, you talked about they've got quality. This is a side that was in Europe last season. And look, they had to work hard to actually survive in this competition last year. They had that playoff, which they won in the last sort of dying minutes that we talked about a couple of weeks ago. So they do have that quality there, but it's points like this that'll hopefully for their sake propel them up the table.
I mean, they've still got teams to play around them. Like they haven't played you yet, I don't think, have they?
I think we play them at home next week. Possibly. Yeah,
we'll have to check that at some point. But whenever that game is, I think that's a big one for Heidenheim to prove.
That's a 12-pointer.
Because with depending when they play St. Pauli and all that, that could be that game could I mean they could jump ahead of St. Pauli depending on the other situation and other games around them at that point as well. So
it's going to be a really good one. But that was a good result for Heidenheim. But
we'll move on.
Yeah, we will.
To
so
the next game.
Yeah,
I'll do it. So, Leipzig versus Stuttgart. Leipzig thoroughly pumped Augsburg last week and had a big game ahead of them this week with that Stuttgart game looming. A team who were informed themselves, and Leipzig continued on their merry way. I give a lot of shit to them, as a lot of other Bundesliga fans probably do. But to give them credit, they're playing well at the moment and they're getting results worthy of the way they're playing. It was 3-1 the final score in the end over Stuttgart. I thought it was a pretty poor performance from Stuttgart considering they've been in really good form recently. I thought Stiller had an unusually quiet game. Not much really coming from their forwards either. Undav, again, not really that involved in the game. I know Thiago Tomas came off the bench, got a goal, well-taken goal as well. Pretty poor defending, actually, from Leipzig at that point, but I guess at 3-0 up at that point. Was it 3-0 or 2-0? I can't remember, but it was at the point in the game, it was still poor defending, but I still thought overall Leipzig were just too much quality for Stuttgart. Diamande's looking like a hell of a player, isn't he?
Well, I mentioned during the 25-minute game that I watched was he set up the first goal, but he actually turned assistant into assassin with the second. So he actually scored the double with a really nice low strike, and definitely in the mix for the best young player of the year for mine so far. He's had a fantastic season so far.
Yeah, that's true. But we talk about keeper blunders. There was an awful one in this game as well. Let's not forget that. Alexander Nubel for Stuttgart with another. There's something right now in the Bundesliga with goalkeeper errors, and it's just like a common thing, especially with his lot. But Alexander Nubel joined that list in this game as well.
I think Romelu Cruz is on his Christmas card list coming up this year. With an absolute gift of a goal. Losing the ball, trying to turn. We've all seen those YouTube clips of keeper errors.
You're gonna put the music.
Turning circle of the Queen Mary, and it always backfires. And it was even in slow motion. It was never going to look good, was it?
No, never.
No, but look, certainly, what is it with goalkeepers? It's around making errors, as we've said. But look, from a table point of view, Leipzig up to second with that result, and Stuttgart just embarrassed, really.
I wouldn't embarrassed. I think Leipzig outplayed them overall in the game. I think you look at moments, just an error from Nubel gave them their third, and the first goal I feel a bit unlucky on Chabot. I mean, he's just trying to, when the ball's coming across and you're a centre back and you're just trying to get anything on it to clear it, it can sometimes unfortunately happen. And for Jeff Chabot, it just happened to go the wrong side of the post. Unfortunately, not much you can really do about that. But as I said, I think overall Leipzig just too much quality on the part for Stuttgart, and right now are looking like the team to beat for that second place race. I mean, Dortmund are up there with them as well. I mean, it's every week it gets more and more enticing, that second place battle, of course. We'll move on to the next game, which was another big win, and one that I was thoroughly disappointed with in the away team again. Köln pumped Hamburg 4-1, and I did not see that coming.
Well, I didn't.
I mean, as a Sam Howley fan, you're thoroughly over the moon. But
but I mean, I had a really good look at this game, and it was great, but it was also very strange for different reasons, and we'll sort of unpack it. But look, battle of the promoted clubs. It was highly anticipated until, of course, the opening goal, which capped off a shocking weekend for Hamburg-based defenders and errors. Short pass from Fernandes, Albert Sambi Lakonga actually slipped. So had the ball in traction and slipped, and that basically opened up the door for Ranga Aka, who's actually in really good form for Köln. And he basically tapped it in on 25 minutes. The one thing I will point out from a Köln point of view is that vintage kit is actually the Where's Wally kit. It's one of the best vintage kits I've ever seen. So
it really does.
Kudos to Köln for their drip. But look, the heat on Hamburg continued in the second half. Kynes' free kick was absolutely superb, doing in Fernandes, who had already made one blunder, so you may as well just watch the second sail into back of your net.
Right.
And look, the home side were in raptures. The fans were absolutely... The place was pumping. Hamburg actually thought they had one back, but was waved offside. But Dompe had a really good game in this one, and his goal to pull one back, or pull the only goal back for Hamburg, was actually quality.
It was a really good goal. I don't know if he meant it as a cross or a shot, but either way, take nothing away from the goal. From a player who I spoke about last week, I think it was, saying I've been really impressed with him recently. And I think, even though his side went down 4-1 ultimately, and, a decent enough performance from him again, and a goal to cap it off as well from Dompe.
Yeah. The craziness actually came at this point. So we actually had a Bundesliga record. The quickest double yellow card in the shortest amount of time from a substitute, or might have been ever. Sevilla actually came on. So Farai actually came on. It was about the 77th minute. By the 80th, he was gone. Yeah. So two ridiculous tackles. White line fever. If you guys get a chance to have a look at the highlights, you'll see exactly what we're talking about. Just ridiculous. I played indoor soccer for a number of years as a goalkeeper / defender. I've never been sent off that quickly. So, and that just really was the beginning of the end for Hamburg, because by that point, Köln still had Syed Al-Mala off the bench. He came on and scored.
Who's been called up to Germany, by the way.
He has, and I was just about to say he's been another one of those.
Congratulations to him.
Yeah, and it fully deserved as well. I mean, his body of work over the last few weeks since we've been doing this pod has actually been really impressive, and he deserves it. But for Köln to have a guy like him who they can pull off the bench and to score, it just speaks volumes, especially for another side that's been promoted and they want to survive in this competition as well. Just really impressive, and Kaminsky scored late as well, just to pile on more pain. But I mean, Hamburg have had some okay results in the last few weeks, but this is one they would definitely want to forget.
Yeah, I've been tooting their horn in recent weeks, despite them not getting results, playing well. I think they let me down here today, because that was a very poor performance from them that I wasn't expecting. Köln, to be fair, give them credit. They continued their solid start to the season, in all fairness, especially with that result. But I was a little disappointed that Hamburg went down so easily. It was the first time in a month or more that Hamburg have really had a poor performance, possibly since we beat them earlier in the season.
Just no resistance, really.
It was just a poor overall performance. Hopefully they'll bounce back. I still think, I say it every week, I still think they're too good to go down. Both teams definitely, but I will say Hamburg as well. But we'll move on to the last game of the Bundesliga round, and Wolfsburg versus Hoffenheim, and I think it's a result that went the way of the teams currently going. Wolfsburg lost again, and an ever impressive Hoffenheim won again. Who were just turning into something this season. They started the season slow, but these recent weeks I mean, Hoffenheim fans must love us because I'm pretty sure since we started doing this podcast, they're now 3 from 3.
I think so.
Yeah. So Hoffenheim fans, jump in the comments and tell us how much you love us because we're clearly a good luck charm for your team right now.
Absolutely.
3-2 was the score. It was a closer game, but I think overall Hoffenheim were the better team. On the day.
By quite a margin. They were, and look, certainly just a couple of things I noted. Mohamed Amora did score early, rounding Oliver Baumann, who's been solid this year, but not on this occasion. But Kramaric came on for the second half, and he made an impact as he does. And again, one of those players that is probably really good for a side to have on the bench that you can bring on when you need them.
Yeah, I just think he's back. He's had a very good season this season for Hoffenheim. I think I said before last week, like he wasn't particularly amazing last season, but this season he's really been important to like anything attacking they've been doing, and they've scored a lot of goals in recent weeks as well. But
look, certainly from a Hoffenheim point of view, it was a great left cross after the half hour, allowing Wouter Berger to take a bite out of the Wolfsburg leg to even things up. So
did you write that on purpose? Sorry, because Berger bite.
What gave it away? We did, it's certainly with all the high level technical analysis on this podcast, you've got to have a bit of fun as well. But look, Grisha Promer was another guy that I've been impressed with as well, and his header made it 2-1 not long after. And look, it really summed up Wolfsburg's problems. I mean, we talked about how high Hoffenheim have reached. We're up to 6th after this result. Wolfsburg still looking for a first home win, and we just don't know when that's going to come.
Yeah, I mean, they won last week against Hamburg, of course, in a game which they probably shouldn't have won, and they've lost again here. I know Hoffenheim, have had a good run of form recently. They're scoring goals for fun. Wolfsburg need to find a way to turn the goals they're scoring in games into wins. Obviously, they won last week. They're in a bad spot at the moment. They're another team who are starting to float around that unwanted relegation zone at the moment. Hoffenheim have moved well clear of it after being around that area the first couple of weeks of the season. They're up in the European places now, I believe, and deservedly so. Because
I agree. They've done really well too.
They are playing some brilliant football at the moment.
Yeah, they certainly are, and look, credit to them, and for rising. And there's going to be other teams that are sort of slowly getting their act together, and the winter break's 6 weeks away
or so.
It's going to be interesting to see sort of how the table looks by that point in terms of who's in the mix for that relegation scrap, and who's sort of mid-table and who's pushing for those European spots, even still with a few months to go by the time January rolls around before the end of the season. But look, it was a really good weekend of games for mine, and look, hoping for more of the same with the weekend coming up, which we're going to review next week. Big.
I know, apologies, this video is coming out late, people, but because it's the international break next week, we're just going to do this. Obviously, this video is probably going to be coming out on the Monday, obviously, which would be, don't get confused, it's not reviewing the games that are going on during this weekend as we speak. That one, because it's the international break and there's a way for us to get content out, it'll just be pushed back a week, but we'll easily be able to get back on schedule after all this hectic last week or so for me and my partner. So don't worry too much. So but that wraps up the Bundesliga for the week just gone. We'll move on to the A League, but before we do, because we're going to make a habit now, don't forget to give us a follow and subscribe if you're liking this content we bring to you guys, because we do it 2 times a week, usually try and do Monday and Thursday. I'll admit recently it's been all over the place, but that's our usual idea. So don't forget to follow and subscribe, you beautiful people.
Especially those Hoffenheim fans.
Especially the Hoffenheim fans, because we're really helping your team out right now. We'll move on to the A League though, and just like we started the Bundesliga with your team, we'll start the A League with your team, and just like your team in the Bundesliga, your team in the A League failed to score. I will also point out in that same week, West Brom also failed to score. So Ben had a wonderful week of watching his teams fail to score goals across 3 separate games.
It was fantastic.
And why not? Let's just kick it off with probably one of the most dullest games of football Melbourne City have played in quite a while.
Indeed. And the fixture before going over to Japan for a Champions League as well. It's probably not the warm-up game that you want, but...
Which you did, because we will point out, because obviously in advance, they did beat Makita Zelvia, right?
I think that's how you pronounce it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you did beat them, so that's impressive. But let's go reverse time and back to a pretty drab goalless draw up at Suncorp.
Yeah, look, it was a really, really not a great game to watch.
He's finally getting some boring games of football in the A League. About fucking time.
Well, funny you should mention that, because certainly I'm sure there's going to be some other dull games in the A League to review as time goes on, but that's for another review. But yeah, 0-0 draw at Suncorp on the Friday night to start the round. And look, I was expecting a little bit more from my City boys. Takeshi Kanamori was up front with Caputo and Mazzeo was an attacking three, but it was 16-year-old Besian Kelechi, I'll get those pronunciations right eventually, I've got all year. He moved into the right back spot, and look, hopefully he can make that his own. I've said this before, it's great to see City giving these academy kids exposure and extended exposure as well. Vidic was leading the front line again in a 4-4-2 for the Raw. Look, it really wasn't anything to get excited about up to half time. Jay O'Shea had the best chance for the Raw, and they were defensively strong.
I will point out they are playing well defensively under Valkanis.
Yeah.
The last couple of seasons they were a bit open at times and they're a bit too easy to score against. But I think whilst they're still not scoring all too many at the moment, they are very good defensively and looking organised at the back for most of their games at the moment. So Valkanis has definitely improved them in that regard.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just not much to talk about really in this game, is there?
Yeah, no.
Not too many chances. I mean, the biggest talking point came at the end of the game, and it had nothing to do with an actual goal or assist or anything.
No, definitely not. So Tempest fled in the closing minutes. So Nathaniel Atkinson was actually trying to, as you do, waste a little bit of time from a conceded free kick. And it was Vrakas who didn't take kindly to that. And before you know it, most players were involved. And Andrew Naboo, I've actually seen this footage a few times, sort of since the game. And he was one of the main instigators. He loves a bit of a dust up. Does Andrew Naboo? But Ferreira was actually one of the main reasons why City didn't go behind. He's been solid again in defence. The South American. But look, not a game that I'm going to replay on Paramount anytime soon.
Yeah, definitely not.
City certainly wouldn't be. They'd be pleased to get a point away from home. Raw would be really happy not to concede at home. They've had. I mean, you look back at that Phoenix game a couple of weeks ago where they were probably unlucky not to take a point away from that one as well. But Valkanis has got them playing some really good football. But this one definitely won't be in the highlight package on grand final night for sure.
So let's just move swiftly on to a game with a little more to talk about. After watching his team put in a pretty drab performance up at Suncorp, he got to then watch the second game that Friday night, where I will point out, I don't know if this is like just not wishful thinking, but just trying to forget the result and make it better for himself as a City fan. But I did just change the score on the thing because he had said Perth beat Victory 2-0, and I looked at that and I was like, that certainly didn't happen, man. But yes, he did have to then sit and watch his cross-city rivals get a fairly comfortable routine 2-0 win away in Perth. In another game, which I must say, even from the highlights, didn't have a lot going on with it, apart from the 2 goals that Victory scored.
I have said to you off camera that these Perth Friday or Saturday night late kickoffs are like a bit of a sleeping pill. They do put you to sleep a little bit.
You said it, Perth Glory fans, not me. Get him in the comments, not me. However,
Perth fans, I have actually given you guys a big G up in terms of your travel and you filling the ground, and you actually did that again. Big up to you guys for attending and showing up, and especially against City the week or two before. That's a really good sign. That although you're not getting the results, you're still turning up, and that's what good supporters do.
Let's just talk about the game, man.
Let's
not the fan base.
No, exactly. Well,
we're not doing reviews of fan bases.
No, but look, certainly this one was. I mean, look, the conditions were really bad. There was a lot of rain, so it didn't obviously help the home side. But Keegan Jelicic was really in this as well, due to another defensive lapse from Brian Kaltak, who, as you will remember, helped concede the first goal against City the week before. But certainly Jelicic has been really impressive for Victory. Was a low strike on the edge of the box, easily beat Matt Sutton in goal. And as we said before, Perth didn't learn much defensively from the previous week. Wyan Matter actually made it 2-0 with his first goal for his new club.
Grimaldi's course, yeah. I think the victory system is suiting him a lot more. I thought he was absolutely wasted at Wanderers last season. He just looked like he couldn't get involved in games the way he wanted to, and I think from what I've seen so far of him in victory this season, he looks like he's got a lot more freedom to be a little more expressive on the ball, and maybe not all the time the teammates are on the same wavelength for him as you'd expect, but I think overall it seems like a better suited club for him. Much as it pains me to say as a Sydney fan, and seeing a United player who's a cult hero in recent times go and play for two of my most hated A-League clubs, I have to admit he's working well in this victory setup. Yeah, it
looks like he's slotted in well. But look, the one thing I'll say from a victory point of view is, look, their wing play was actually really impressive, and there is a derby, the first derby of the new season coming up. And City's going to have to be really aware of that in terms of getting a result. But we're not here to talk about City. We're here to talk about victory. And look, they were really good on this particular night. But for Perth, 6 goals conceded for no reward in the last fortnight to this point is really disappointing even for them. We talked about previously off camera our praises and predictions and where we think Perth
You mean
might
in the
finish.
video that we tried to upload as our first video and couldn't because we fucked up that badly in the audio?
The very same one. Yeah. We did have a talk about
the one you guys will never see.
yeah. That's one for the archives. But look, even for them, it's really disappointing, and I think that prediction of last is actually looking more and more accurate by the week. Sorry, Perth fans.
I mean, it really is. I mean, it's weird, right? Because I always look at Perth and then I look at Tag and I always think, he's actually a quality player, and he's like, still, even at his age and at the fact that he's at Perth glory and has been for the last few seasons, he still looks like you could easily fit in and play up front for most other clubs in the league and fit in seamlessly. And Lockie Wales has had a decent-ish start to the season in comparison to where the team are at the moment.
He's a warrior,
Yeah. He used to play for City, of course. But I just think, albeit they've played City and Victory, not two difficult games, of course, in the last, 1 point from their first 3 games, so it's not, overall, and that Kucharski injury could be bad for them as well. I'm not 100% sure how long he's out for, but I'll always go into bat for my club's players, of course. I mean, former players, or in this case, obviously. But I just think another disappointing game for Perth, and Victory, who haven't looked too convincing themselves overall this season, pick up their first win of the season, and a good response after being thoroughly twatted by Newcastle last week, which I think will be a perfect segue into the next game. Why don't we just talk about that one now as a perfect segue? Talking about Newcastle giving Victory a thorough twatting last week, and I think even in the review last week, I even said that I was worried for our game against Newcastle because of their young talent and the attacking prowess they possess. Boy, was I wrong. They were absolutely atrocious, and especially in the second half. And I'll give them credit. They took the lead, albeit Devonish Mears probably and definitely should have saved that shot. But, and I was a little worried at that point because we just had a goal disallowed at the other end and we were attacking well, and then they go up the other end and score a pretty cheap goal almost because we should have, Devonish Mears should have saved it. But then Toure goes up, equalises with a well-taken top corner finish from just outside the box. But then at 1-1 at half-time, and the game's still kind of looking in the balance, Newcastle absolutely shat the bed in the second half defensively, conceding 2 identical goals. I'm pretty sure you saw them, didn't you? Mm-hmm. Pretty much to go from 1-1 to 3-1, and it was game over at that point. Our press, or that mid-block sort of press that we put on them in that game, in that typical Sydney press, could just kind of, any chance, just swarming players, just worked perfectly, and Newcastle got caught out almost identically twice in the second half through that, and that's just poor defensive. I guess it shows that for all the attacking prowess they have, when you have all those young players in the team, it can show in experience, and the way they handled that second half proved exactly that. Those two similar goals obviously helping Al Hassan Toure to his first ever A-League hat-trick. And helping us on all the way to a 4-1 win when Pat Wood came off the bench for the second week running and scored for the second week running, courtesy of yet more defensive lapses and judgment, concentration, call it what you will, from the Jets. I just think first half they were decent enough. Second half was an abomination from Jets, in my opinion. Fantastic, because it helped my team to a nice, comfortable 4-1 win.
Yeah.
But, just, you can't defend. You make the mistake once, fine. You lose the ball on the halfway line and you're turning and you're chasing, fine. But don't do it 15 or so minutes later, or how many minutes later it was again. And then the fourth goal, of course, just two defenders and the keeper all trying to close down one player, leaves Pat Wood completely unmarked in the box.
Yeah.
We managed to cut the ball back to him, easy tap in, 4-1, game over at that point. And, once it got to 3-1 even, Jets just really couldn't do much more at that point. They had a couple of chances, but the confidence had clearly gone at that point.
Yeah, and you talk about that confidence and the young kids who we've seen blossom in the last sort of month or so. I guess what it does for them, this sort of result, is it takes a bit of the gloss off those performances. I saw them against Victory the week before and they were superb. I saw them in that cup final against Heidelberg and they were superb. This really takes the shine off that, and is it that the young inexperience coming to the fore as well as Sydney being on, right?
Yeah.
But I guess the result moves Sydney up to second now. They've had a really good couple of controlling performances.
Ocon Engsler, again, he's got called up to the Australia squad, I believe, as well, as has Al Hassan Toure, actually, funny enough.
Yeah.
Both of them with fantastic performances. Ocon Engsler, for the second week running, one of the best midfielders on the park for both teams involved. And Reece Hewley, I've been really impressed with as well. I think he's starting to really settle into that midfield role a little bit as well. I know it's early days. Defensively, Tisserand's looks solid. Alongside Alex Grant at the back. I know I've got my doubt, a lot of Sydney fans, there's a little bit about Devon Ishmael. I still don't think he's the worst keeper in the league. I'll say that before we go. He goes and throws balls into the back of his net this coming weekend against MacArthur, but which kicks off in just over an hour from now. So hopefully I haven't jinxed it there for us by saying that.
We'll have to wait and see on that one.
But overall great performance from Sydney. 2 weeks running. I think we've, that sluggish start to the season away at Adelaide's kind of behind us now, clearly, and just kind of looking to push on and up the table from there. Speaking of Adelaide, we'll go on to their game next. And Auckland are looking like they're just going to be the business again this season, as well as they were last season.
Yeah.
2-1. They did concede for the first time this season. I will point that out. But again, just an overall comfortable performance. I only watched the highlights. This was one of the games you covered, obviously. Yeah,
and look, certainly I think from an Auckland point of view, look, packed house at Mount Smart again, and they're really going to look at making that grand fortress again this year. I don't see any reason why they can't. But this particular first half belonged to the Strikers Union, so Sam Cosgrove, somebody you've talked about previously, and a guy that I've been really impressed with, Luka Jovanovic. So both of them actually scored for their respective clubs in the first half. But the Jovanovic goal is going to be one that's going to be replayed multiple times during this season. He's already a favourite with the Red Army of Adelaide as well. You go to games to watch guys like him, absolutely, both of them, both sets of fans, right? So, but Randall hitting the post was disappointing, but it was Louis Verstrata who was actually the quickest to react from that, and he actually put Auckland back.
I'm going to just put on that. You mentioned him. A player who's really impressed me, who's come on leaps and bounds this season, since not a particularly amazing first season in that Auckland setup. Jesse Randall's looking like a new player now, isn't he? He looks like a seriously good player this season. He's just quick, he's on it, he's got a great shot on him at times. He's scored a couple of goals, of course, this season as well, across all competitions, if we're counting the cup as well. I think, he's just had a really explosive start to the season in general. This young player, I think he's now been called up to the New Zealand team a couple of times now, actually, and I think deservedly so, because he's been one of he's been one of their better players, if not one of their best players this season. He's keeping Logan Rogerson out of the team right now, a full-fledged, experienced New Zealand international, Logan Rogerson. So, top marks to Jesse Randall. Auckland doing what they do best, holding on to leads. It's a Stevie Corica special. It really is. I've been through it many times when he was in his pomp with Sydney so you know
exactly what he's going to bring, right?
Yeah, so it's just that really good defensive, physical solidity, and Auckland just once again have it in spades basically this season. It's bucket loads of it.
It's really impressive. given the fact that they came in last year and had a really solid campaign and were unlucky not to get to the last game of the season. And just sort
of still won the Premier's play.
Well, they did, but they're certainly just backing that up so far this year has been really impressive for me. And with the derby, the first derby coming up next weekend, or this weekend as we record.
Yesterday.
We record this, so back to the future. That's going to be tricky, isn't it? But look, they'll want to really consolidate on that result. And look, I was really impressed with them. Adelaide were good, but Auckland were better at home. So that look, I was really impressed. But I had a look at the next game, and I would love to say it was as impressive, but I can't.
He got a wonder. So I will point out, normally we try and even the games out 3 each in the A League. Obviously, last week he had to do a lot of the heavy lifting because I had little to no time.
And was happy to do so.
Yeah, and that meant he got a Wanderers game. And he can understand what it's like watching Wanderers play. And I think, their poor start to the season has continued, really. Not another amazing performance. I know MacArthur are a decent team, not the easiest to beat. We've had our troubles against them in the past, that's for certain. And may have our troubles against them in just under an hour's time. Again, hopefully I haven't jinxed it, but yeah, it was MacArthur 1, Wanderers 1, the final score in this game at Campbelltown. Again, I was really only going off the highlights, but even then I could just kind of imagine it's just another one of those performances for Wanderers. Was it? I'm assuming it was.
It was, and look, the home fans didn't have to wait long for a bullseye. Harrison Sawyer, who's been impressive as well, another young player coming through to watch this year.
Good tall striker.
Yeah, really good header, and it's someone to give MacArthur hope for the campaign. It's been a bit of a slow start for them, but look, it wasn't, as we said, it wasn't the most exciting game of the week, but both sides actually created really good chances without reward. But Costa Barbarouses, he found Pantazopoulos at the far post for the headed equaliser, and it was only a desperate defending from MacArthur which prevented them going behind in the last 5 minutes. They also peppered the Wanderers' goal with no success. Philip Curto actually had a bit to do in the last sort of 10 minutes or so. Really, really good low save, preventing a late winner. And Crave and Borello, shout out to those two guys. They were excellent for Wanderers. It was a game that deserved to win it, but those two can really hold their heads high in this one. So probably one of those games where either side had really good chances to win it, but just had to share the points.
Yeah, as I said, it's one of those ones not to find much to talk about from a neutral perspective, of course. I guess maybe not neutral because one of the teams in that competition in that game I thoroughly despise, being a Sydney fan. But generally, as a neutral perspective, it's just I don't know how Wanderers fans feel about Stajic right now, but it hasn't started well for them. They're winless in their first 3 games. I know it's still early days, but they haven't looked great at times. I think they've lost quality in their team overall. Say what you will about Costa Barbarouses, he's been a good servant to the A League, a good striker over the years. I thought he was pretty good for us. He was good for Victory, good for Brisbane, decent for Wellington as well. I don't know, if that was the right move really for Wanderers to bring in an aging Barbarouses.
Yeah.
After getting rid of someone who was as prolific in front of goal as Nick Milanovic was for them. I'm not 100% sure if that was the right move. Only time will tell as the rest of the season goes on. Again, it's only early days. I just think something needs to change about them getting wins and stuff like that, if I'm being on the neutral side here.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether that's the manager or whether a system needs to change, but I just think, I call it this every week, but I really feel it's like this sometimes. But this hit and hope football that they play and that Alan Stajic likes to play at his clubs, it's just not really a viable method of winning games once you get found out, really. MacArthur, again, themselves, looking relatively decent and solid overall, but just maybe, again, not enough in the tank to get themselves over the line in that game and get the whole 3 points.
Yeah.
So... we'll wrap it up with the final game of the 15th and final game of our review this week in what has been possibly the weekend of draws. The third, it's a Mariners 1, Wellington 1. I think that was the third draw in the A League this week, and I think there was 3 or 4, possibly 3, I think, in the Bundesliga as well. So yeah, it was a weekend of draws. Really just, tale of two clubs, you could say, over in Gosford, wasn't it? Mariners, won against Jets, albeit very fortuitously in the first round. Very poor against us in that 2-0 defeat. Looked a bit better, I'd say, against Wellington. Sabitnor scored a good goal, first of the season. I believe it was his first in over a year. It's only his second in the A League ever as well. I thought he was one of the players who was very poor against us. Looked a little more lively against Wellington. Got a goal to go with it. Redders, the all-powerful Andrew Redmayne, as I hit my mic accidentally.
Doing what he does. He was fantastic. There were a couple of late saves that he basically threw himself at to get that point for Mariners. Carlos Sarmiento, he was really strong, especially late. Eze scored in that game as well, and he just in that preview, which you guys won't see because of the audio issues we have with it, I did highlight the fact that I wasn't sure if Eze was going to be amazing in the A League, and the fact that he's relatively unknown quantity. I hold my hands up. I'm looking wrong at that. He's had a good start to the season for Wellington, and he looks like a really good physical striker as well. So I think he could, he could be a handful for teams throughout this season and score quite a few goals potentially as a result of it. I think that was his second of the season. His one today after that opening round one against Perth Glory. I just think it's another draw that's hard to really take much away from, really, isn't it? Yeah. Both teams mostly kind of seem to cancel each other out. Oluwayemi had a couple of good saves. He'll be looking for a better season. I thought he was very suspect at times last season in the Phoenix goal. Not particularly amazing. Had a couple of blunders in him, but he's looked a lot better this season. And I think Redmayne finally put in a performance this season which you'd expect from a keeper like Andrew Redmayne, because I thought he'd been a little bit off it for the first 2 weeks, really. Wasn't amazing against the Jets, really not that great against us, but had a much better game for the Mariners against the Phoenix. So that was my takeaway from a game, which again is hard to really comment on because not all that much happened in it, really, did it? But certainly from just quickly on Redmayne, look, he's showed his quality in this game, and as you know, he played at your club for quite a while. And look, his quality in the A League, but also for the national team, has been really reliable. And look, I think it was a fair result for both clubs. Wellington with a derby in their next fixture. We don't know what that's going to look like. But certainly, look, I think, it was a weekend of draws in both competitions.
Yeah,
it wasn't.
It was, yeah. Well, it's going to happen in football, guys. Sometimes there'll be weeks where we can talk for ages about multiple games. Other times, because 1-1 goalless draw was not much happening. I mean, there's only so much we can say.
We don't want to put too much mustard
on. And we're not going to go into like some ridiculous tactical breakdown and start talking about XG and crap like that. So, yeah. I think that just about wraps up. I think we've done better as well. We're just over the hour mark. We said to each other we're going to try and get them shorter, so this is a good sign that we can. But I think that wraps up the week. I'm sorry again, guys, it's been a bit late just with the hectic stuff and my partner and the hospital and stuff like that. But she's recovering now. That's why we're in this Airbnb, to give her some space. It's come out a bit later as all, and for this week currently going on right now, we'll bring that out next week, just so we can actually have some content to bring you whilst we're on international break, of course, because we're not going to be covering all the qualifiers and obviously stuff like that, right? So there's something to bring you. We did a tea break episode we recorded yesterday. I haven't yet had a chance to edit it, but I will get that out in the next couple of days. So you guys might see this and then that video get released either on the same day or only a day apart. Yeah. We'll see.
We were hoping to make that one a little bit shorter. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case.
Yeah, that did go past an hour and 40 minutes. But
look, that's going to be a really great episode. We're looking forward to bringing that to you guys and uploading that.
And which we will say, it's now November 9th, of course. Ashes starts on the 21st, so it's not too long, guys, before not only we bring you that Ashes preview in a couple of weeks, but we do this all talked about watch along that's going to be happening for day 2. That's right, day 2 of the first test at Perth. We will be doing that watch along. So we will be live. I believe we'll probably do it through YouTube Live, or we'll find something. But we'll let you guys know closer to the date. But we are planning to do the whole day watch along. What we're probably planning to do is we'll stream the first session. We'll turn the stream off. So during the lunch break, because it's 40 minutes, so we can eat and kind of refresh a bit. And then we're going to whack the stream back on, and we're going to power straight through the second and third session. We won't do a break for the tea break. We'll just leave that running.
We can talk amongst ourselves for 15 minutes.
That's only about 15-20 minutes. But so we'll do the first stream. We'll have a break. We'll come back for the second and third session continuously. So if you guys want to watch some cricket with us, even though you won't actually be able to see what's going on, but for copyright reasons, obviously. But if you want to watch along some cricket with us, just have it on the screen yourself and then watch our stream as we're watching it as well. Then please jump on our channel. We'll send links out and stuff and whatnot, and what we have to when it gets closer to the day. But yeah, that does it for another A-League and Bundesliga week review. Again, sorry, apologies, it's late, guys. We're trying to get back on schedule, but so hopefully you haven't got too impatient with us as our audience grows. That does it from us today, guys. We'll be back Thursday for the next tea break episode, and the following weekend we'll release the review for this weekend. I know it's a bit late, but then at least we can get content out during the international break, so we're not leaving you guys sitting there twiddling your thumbs, obviously waiting like you have already so patiently for this one and the tea break episode. We're still yet to release that we recorded yesterday. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this episode again, coming at you from this beautiful Airbnb.
We mentioned it earlier, but look, we appreciate the support just starting out, but look, like and subscribe. We are on Instagram as well, and look, certainly we really enjoy the content that we bring you guys every week. It's a lot of fun, and we're looking forward to the Ashes preview, which is coming up, as well as the watch along, as we said. Yeah. And of course, we've got some more A-League action coming up. And
Big Bash soon as well.
Yeah, we'll do a preview of that as well coming up. Absolutely. Yeah. Looking forward to it.
Yeah. So yeah, I think we'll leave it there, guys. So peace out. Take care.
Take care.
Hope you have fun. See ya. Bye.